In this video, I'm going to go over the most missed items from the first 5 AP style assignments that we've done. So let's dig right in. One of the things that a lot of people got wrong was making the distinction about when to abbreviate and when to not abbreviate in an address. So the thing to keep in mind is that the building number is the triggering event. Okay, so if there's a building number there, that needs that you might, and I emphasize the word might, need to abbreviate the type of street. So here's what I mean. There are the magic 3. These are the only 3 that ever get abbreviated in an address. Okay, street gets abbreviated, avenue gets abbreviated, boulevard. Just those 3: street, avenue, boulevard. All the others, it doesn't matter if there's a building number, if there's not a building number, they're spelled out. Always spelled out. So any other word that would indicate a type of street, drive, road, terrace, parkway, anything like that, they're all spelled out. So this is correct usage. He lives at 1426 South. Remember, the directional word is abbreviated as well. Miller Street. Street's on the list of the magic 3, so it gets abbreviated. This is also correct. Notice South is abbreviated. We got the building number. South is abbreviated, but drive is spelled out, because it's not one of the magic 3. It's on this other list here. So it's never abbreviated. Okay. All right. So let's talk about seasons. I think I may have thrown you a little bit of a trick here, in that in the question that I gave, it was used 2 different ways. One was to indicate just like a general season of the year, and the other one was like labeling a semester as the spring whatever or the fall whatever. But that doesn't make any difference. Seasons, this is a little bit of an outlier because we capitalize days of the week and months, but season names, for whatever reason, are not considered proper nouns. So they're always lowercase: fall, autumn, winter, spring, summer. University semesters don't have proper names, so they're not capitalized. And you don't capitalize a season just because it's been paired with a year. So if I say MSU spring 2024 semester will begin on January 16th, and also you got the lowercase spring. And then just in general uses, they're lowercase. I fertilize my lawn every spring and fall, lowercase. All right. Now, month, day, year, and day, month, date combos. So I want you to look at a little bit of a progression here and see the trick is that it's at a point when we start to incorporate 3 elements, we need to use some commas. So for example, the game will be played in November. November, one thing. Okay. If it doesn't rain. And by the way, I added if it doesn't rain because I need for there for a reason to be a couple of commas. You'll see what I mean in a minute. The game will be played on Tuesday. So here we just had a month. Here we just have a day. Again, no commas involved. The game will be played on November 10th. Now we've got 2 things. We've got November and 10th, but again, no commas involved. Here's where it gets different. The game will be played on Tuesday, November 10th, if it doesn't rain. Now we've got 3 things: Tuesday, November, and 10th. When this happens, whatever element is second, so in this case, it's this month date combo, that gets set off with commas. So it's Tuesday, comma, November 10th. These commas kind of work like parentheses. Okay. There's one before and one after. The only way that they're not like parentheses is that if there was no more sentence here, if this was the end of the sentence, you would just put a period there. Okay. That'd be a little bit different than parentheses. Okay. Same idea works if we're talking about, these are day, month, and date. The same idea would work if we were talking about month, date, and year. So let me show you what I mean. He was born in 1950 in Springfield. 1950, that's one thing. He was born in January in Springfield. January, one thing. He was born on January 15th in Springfield. So I got 2 things, January 15th. But here's what happens when we start putting all 3 together. He was born on January 15th, 1950 in Springfield. Notice now that the year, which is like the last item in the list, is set off with commas. I think the AP's reasoning here is it just makes it a little bit more readable when you've got that extra item in there. And again, it is a comma before and a comma after. Okay. And if it was the end of a sentence, you would do the comma before and just put a period right here. All right. I know that's a little bit tricky, but it does come up some and you need to know how to do it. Okay. Let's talk about o'clock. So in general, kind of don't want to use the word o'clock. It's the preferred usage is to say the time with a figure and AM and PM. But if you look in the style book carefully, it does say that this is permitted, it's fine. And probably the time we use it the most is in a quotation when that we need to have a way to write that because that's what the person said. So AM and PM doesn't work neatly. We don't usually say 7 o'clock AM. We usually would say 7 AM. So we have to, in order to make the sentence clear, we got to use some words to talk about what time of day you actually mean. So it would be incorrect to write the meeting will begin at 8 o'clock Monday. The problem is that the meaning is ambiguous. I know that it's 8 o'clock and I know it's Monday, but I don't know if it's 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night. So we've got to tell people this is an error. Okay, we can't leave it like that. So you can say the meeting will begin at 8 o'clock Monday morning. That's fine. Or the meeting will begin at 8 o'clock Monday night, depending on what's accurate. But you got to have that because there's, again, when you use o'clock, it just isn't very natural to throw AM and PM there, and you can't leave an ambiguous statement like this. Okay, that's what makes it wrong. Also, when you're using the o'clock usage, you still follow the rule on times of day that we always use figures for that. So it would be wrong to write 8 o'clock with 8 spelled out like this. Okay, when it comes to noon, just if the time is exactly noon, say noon, don't say 12 p.m. or any variation on it. The county commission meeting will begin at noon on Tuesday. That's correct. The county commission meeting will begin at 12 p.m. Tuesday. Use noon, don't use 12 p.m. If it's 12:05 p.m., fine, but if it's exactly at 12, say noon. Super wrong usage would be the county commission meeting will begin at 12 noon. That's a redundancy. Don't do that. Another one, a lot of people didn't quite understand this one, this Monday. Okay. We want to avoid redundancies and we want to avoid wordiness. So I want you to look at some examples here. Let's say that it is Thursday, September 28th. That's the day that I'm publishing this sentence. And the game that it's talking about is going to take place on September 30th. Okay. So look at this sentence. The Missouri State football team will play the Southern Illinois football team Saturday. Okay. Saturday. That's perfectly clear. We don't need any other words going along with this. We don't need to say we'll play the Southern Illinois football team this Saturday. Okay. This Saturday. We don't need to say they will play this coming Saturday, right? I realize people use these phrases in speech all the time, but in writing, we want to be as concise as we can. And the meaning is exactly the same if you take those things out. It would always be particularly wrong to say that they will play next Saturday, because that would imply that the game is on October 7th, not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. I know that's confusing. People confuse each other in day-to-day speech with that kind of talk. We don't want to do it in print. Honestly, if it's more than a week out, you should be using the date anyway and not the day of the week. Okay. So anyway, I hope that is clear. And by the way, I just did this for effect. I would not repeat the words football team multiple times. Obviously, the Missouri State football team wouldn't play the Southern Illinois volleyball team. That wouldn't make any sense. Okay, clock time and amounts of time. Clock time meaning I'm trying to tell you what time of day something is happening. Amounts of time is just a quantity of seconds or minutes or hours. And so the style rules apply differently. When we deal with clock times, we're always using figures. So the speech will begin at 1 p.m. Notice that 1, I use the numeral 1. The game will begin at 6:30 p.m. Here we've got numerals with a colon. It would be incorrect, however, to write the speech will last 1 hour. So when we're talking about amounts of time, then the general rule on numbers applies. Okay, so 1 should be written, it should be written out as a word instead of being written as a figure, 1 hour. Just an amount of time is not treated the same way as clock time, time of day. It would be wrong to write the drive took 3 hours. Instead, we would want to write the drive took 3 hours with 3 spelled out as a word. The drive took 13 hours. Again, that's the general rule that applies here. So 10 and above is written as figures. So this would be correct. 3 hours is correct with it written out as a word. This is wrong. The general rule applies to amounts of time. All my examples here were hours, but the same logic would apply if we were talking about minutes and seconds. Last thing, time sequences are treated differently than just amounts of time. So here's where we're needing to basically, a time sequence is where you're trying to imply the amount of time something took, and it involves both minutes and seconds, or hours, minutes, and seconds, or hours and minutes, and you need to say them all in a row. Okay. So as a historic example here, in 1954, Roger Bannister ran the mile in 3 minutes, 59 seconds. So that was his time, was these two figures put together. And so what AP tells you to do is to use figures for both and join them together with a comma. That's on the first reference in a story. So if you use that again later on in the story, if you have another time sequence, because you've established this pattern, then you can then write it like this. Okay. 2 months later, his rival John Landy ran it in 3:58. So the reader will understand, because you said 3 minutes 59 seconds here, the reader will understand that this means 3 minutes 58 seconds here. That's what they mean by a time sequence. And there is a specific entry in the style book that covers this. Okay, that's all I have for this video.